I'm doing a collab with Mad Capper, so you don't have to. Hello, everyone. Bront, CatHerder here. We're having some fun talking Raid Shadow Legends, and I am not alone. I have the Mad Capper here. He is back playing Raid. Welcome him in. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good, thank you. It's good to finally be here on the Bront. The Bront I left wasn't doing YouTube, so this is like an upgraded 2.0 CatHerder, just for the record.
Yeah, it's definitely been a fun journey, and I appreciate you. You've always been pretty inspiring to me, and you've been very, very excited for me with some of my wonderful trials and tribulations as well. So it's just been kind of cool, and I definitely appreciate your be kind and general philosophy. I mean, yes, you're a little bit of a raging lunatic on Twitch, but that's an entirely different story. And you know what? Sometimes what we do on Twitch is for Twitch entertainment purposes.
Yes, the anger and rage is for show. Mostly, or is it? But yeah, no, it's a good time. I appreciate you've been with the stream for a very long time, and in return I've often reciprocated to yours, and it was fun to watch. And I'm glad that we are now doing a YouTube collab. So it's exciting.
Going to be a lot of fun. We have, if you talk about who is the expert on epics, I think that shouldn't be a tongue twister, but it is. That is Mr. Capper here. He has built all kinds of epics, so you didn't have to, and we definitely appreciate him because that saved us a lot of resources, or in some cases found people that are actually worth investigating. But we're actually going to be talking a little bit. I'm on the free-to-play here, and he's been doing the free-to-play challenge as well. And we were talking a little bit and said, you know what, why don't we talk a little bit about some free-to-play friendly epics? And what we're kind of looking for here is, obviously, Geomancer, as we talked before, is a wonderful epic. Any account that is going to get him is going to love him, but he's actually very, very heavy to invest in. You need a lot of books in him. I mean, yes, you only need the one A3 really, but the one A3 requires 7 books in and of itself, and you're not going to land all 7 books in there to start with. So we're talking about ones that might be easier to invest in. Either they don't require a lot of books, or they don't need any books to function, or they're just such major game changers that the few books you do put in them, once you hit the right book or two, they're going to be amazing for you in that free-to-play and can be absolute account changers for you. So why don't we let you start first, since you are the guest?
All right. Yeah. So the one that I always go to, and this is such an easy one, and it's such feels like it's a cheat because I think everyone knows it by now. But if you're new to the game, you just stumbled upon this channel, you should know about my favorite epic, who I actually do not have on my free-to-play account, and that's Doom Priest of the Knights Revenant.
Yep, she was on my
Doom
list.
Priest. She's the early activator, isn't she? Not? Like, she will activate whatever it is you're trying to do. Clan boss, oh, you want to get rid of the whatever debuff, whether it's a stun debuff or whether it's the debuff from her A2, the boss's A2, don't worry, she's got you. Why? Her passive. She heals all allies 7.5% of the HP, but also removes a random debuff from the start of this champion's turn, which at one time was not random, it was always the first one added. They have fixed that, unfortunately, for a dual occult brawler team I had way back in the day. But she will cleanse that. On top of that, she does have an increased attack, and she does have an increased crit rate on herself. These are random allies, sorry. These are all irrelevant, as is her aura of force speed in battles. I guess there's a scenario where you're going to use that. These were back in the day when I don't think Raid truly understood where they were going with their game. 0 book effort. She's 100 speed. She's nearly 20k HP. Bolster set, yes, please. Anything with speed. Regen sets are good for herself. She heals everyone at the start of her turn and just makes that overall survivability with that cleanse. But most importantly, do not book her. You don't need to. There's no point to. I have booked her to do a video on it once upon a time. It's actually objectively not as good because it's not an attack. And if you have, say, War Master proc you're using for the boss, putting this up, sure, it's increasing the attack every 3 turns instead of every 4, but you're reducing the opportunities for a War Master. So depending on what you're trying to do, may not be great to book her. It certainly is amazing to have her on book.
Yeah, and I mean, she's super useful. I mean, she can be a key to a lot of Doom Tower bosses as well. Nether Spider, she's an amazing cure for keeping you alive against another spider. She's actually really good against Bommel to keep those stuns that will constantly pop off and those burns off, because if she can't cleanse the block stuff, at least like the bombs that are unremovable, she'll remove anything she can remove at least. I know a lot of people are confused about her passive as well. This works even when she is stunned, which is also very, very important as well. Just
Cleanses herself.
Yeah, you know, so, and she can cleanse her own stun off there. She's usable in early Hydra as a way to deal with the Fear Head, because quite often the Fear is the only debuff you're going to have on you. And if it's not, oh darn, she removed a poison instead. I'm not going to cry about that, you know. Very, very good champion. She is actually one of the ones I had on my list, which is why I'm glad I have a list of about 8 or 9 folks. I am going to go with one of the ones I think is still worth early investment. You actually recently did a video on her as well, showing that she still can be useful in Clan Boss, and that is Haikatoon.
Funny enough,
Haikatoon
on my list
has a single book to get this to a 3-turn cooldown. And if for some reason you don't have that book to spare, it's fine. For Arena, you don't need that book, because for Arena, you're hoping you're not going to get back around to it before they're dead. That the speed aura is just so useful everywhere in the game, especially for an early account where speed is so hard to get. And the rest of her kit's decent. It's nice to be able to book her because it's nice to land this decreased speed a little bit more. It's nice to have a better chance of doing this decrease a turn meter, but you don't need it. And honestly, if you're building her for a speed lead in Arena, you might not be building her with accuracy anyway, which means that all you're getting is an extra cooldown on the ability that you don't really care about doing most of the time. So it's absolutely fine. She works fine with no books. She works fine with 1 book. The only real major investment for her is she does get about 7 speed faster at 6 stars, which can be, you know, certainly annoying to choose if you want to or not. But honestly, a speed champion, you want that banner anyway if you can. So, you know, I like her. I still think she's worth investing even in 2025. She's not quite the you must invest in her like she used to be, because there's certainly more champions that do what she does now, but still very good champion.
Absolutely. And fair point. I actually am using her currently in my free to play. I didn't go with Sun Wukong as one of my freebies. So I do have Haikatoon. I don't even have her at 6-star yet. She's a 97, goes up to a 104. But I think those are the 2 key things. Like you said, the high speed, 104 speed for an epic is pretty freaking good when you consider what is 114 or 115 is the highest in the game. And this is with an all area. The other thing is, and you can see here, I have Gorgorab. I haven't switched over to Gorgorab, even though he has a better aura, because his is only Arena, whereas hers is all areas. So if in this opportunity, maybe I get a chance in the 3rd month to switch over to a White Whale comp, I can move Haikatoon over to the Clan Boss. That would require that 1 magical book to land. If it does, maybe we do that, and I can switch to Gorgorab. But the speed difference now, Gorgorab also gains speed upon levels. He goes to, I believe, 96 or 97, but she's just going to be better. So absolutely good call out, and it was on my list. So now I gotta. Thank God I have more than 5 on my list, because I feel like we're going to be
there's plenty of good ones. So it's, you know, at some point in time we'll have some different ones. But all right, what do you got next?
All right, my next one, we're going to go to the Ogren tribe. Not only is this champion on my team, this champion was part of my original Unkillable team for a really long time, a good 6 years ago, and that is Occult Brawler. Occult Brawler, I love champions, especially as a free-to-play like we're talking about here, that don't need books. And this, my friend, this pudgy, beautiful son of a bitch doesn't need books. He puts a 4-turn poison on the boss. It's at the start of each turn, he puts one on himself and a 70% chance of putting one on the clan boss. And then he follows that up by, he's just going to have a 50-50. If you do book him, 60% chance would be nice, but you don't need to for 2 turns on the boss. The clan boss, you just fill the bar, and he puts poisons on himself, which is a neat and unique ability to activate this. If you want to use it in things like Ice Golem, if you're kind of directing traffic, you might be able to use this. But honestly, the block revive, all the different things here in the Curse Eater are fun in other areas. But ultimately, Occult Brawler is he's the king of the poisoners, or was the king of the poisoners for probably 3-4 years in the clan boss, and he's still to this day one of the best clan boss champions in the game.
Yeah, he's fun. I've got him on my free-to-play as well, and I think the only reason I haven't really invested in him is the opportunity cost of 6-starring him over my Kale at the moment has kind of been a little iffy. But from a long-term perspective, if I felt Kale was holding my team back and he was the key, he'd be a huge investment. And yeah, he's definitely a better poisoner than Kale is for the clan boss specifically. And to be fair, that lets you move Kale into other areas of the game where Kale might be a little more useful against, you know, obviously Dragon. Kale's a little more useful for the waves getting to the boss as well, so there's some some other value there. But yeah, this guy is absolutely amazing. He definitely has a weird kit. But even look at this stuff too. Instead of 4 books here, just get him Sniper, and then he gets an extra 5% chance to place the poison on his passive and on his A1. And you're going to want to get the masteries anyway, because you're going to want War Master on him for Clan Boss anyway. So Sniper instead of at least 4 epic books, if not, another 6 ones here.
And really, if you put 10 epic books into them at the worst case scenario, 10's a pretty low number among epics these days.
Yeah.
So it's not terrible.
So, I mean, Fairy does have low value in those books, unfortunately, too, but that's another reason to not need to book him. So, perfect. Speaking in the not need to book, we're going to go to one of my favorite epics. I was so sad when I had to feed her for, I think, the Vlad fusion, and I was so glad when I got another one of them back. Thylesia is absolutely amazing. Definitely one of these squishier champions we've mentioned here with a whopping 12k HP, but she absolutely nukes. She's got 2 AoEs, including a decreased defense that's 100% without books on a 4-turn cooldown, and then a debuff extension on a 3-turn cooldown afterwards. So she can basically get 3 turns on a 4-turn cooldown, and if she's fast enough, which ideally she should be, you're never not going to have decreased defense up. Plus, she's extending all of your other debuffs up. Plus, she's got a chance to debuff spread if you get Hex up there, and she gets a chance to place Hex on people that have decreased defense up there. Now, the Hex is not the most reliable Hex, but it's extra damage if it happens to land. And again, 0 book investment to get her to cook. And, this gets better with some books. This gets better with some books. And if you're investing the books in here, you're getting a ton of extra damage, which is great for her.
Absolutely. She was, she wasn't the first Hex champion we got. I think she was a 3rd behind
We got Vildrax.
The award for the Doom Tower. What's the really cool looking legendary?
Oh,
Thea, and of course Vildrax. I think was the first Hex one. But when she came in, unlike those before her, he was useful, which is always nice to get. Mm-hmm. Thea looks cool. Now she's been reworked and she's a different champion now. But back then it was like you needed to have the sun and the proper equinox of the left Solus just to get her to do her damage. Alessia just comes in, he puts those decreased defense. I am a huge proponent of books being cooldowns, not being percentage chance, and that's what you get here. 4-turn is perfect. If you do round, month 2, you're using her fine. Month 6, you're putting books into her and you're progressing yourself in places like Clan Boss, places like Hydra, and just waves everywhere. I love her. She is one of my favorite champions.
And what's nice too is the Hex is an added bonus. If she didn't have this passive with Hex and this buff spread, she'd still be a good champion.
Absolutely. All right, so my next one, I'm gonna go to another old faithful, and she's a demon spawn. She's magic affinity. She is one of the most recent additions to my free to play, and that's Allure. When you talk about no books and you talk about a champion that does something best in class, you talk about Allure. Her A1 is the de facto standard. Now, we've gone to hard level, Fire Knight, we've got to all these, but as a free-to-play player, you're just looking at the next level. That's all you care about. And even if it's Force, but especially when it's not Force affinity, she is the next level in Fire Knight. And on top of that, as a bonus, she is one of best in class when it comes to Astrax. What's her name?
Dark Fae.
Dark Fae. Yeah, make it easier on me.
Or not Astralix.
Yeah, she reduces turn meter, and the whole thing is as long as you have her 100% crit hit, she attacks 3 times, and it decreases the target's turn meter by 25% on each hit. Against the Fire Knight, that puts him. Once you open that door or open that shield, it ain't closing again. Obviously, there's a speed component to it, but on top of that, and I actually picked her as my free to play champion last year. Where there's a lot less freebies going around, you couldn't use legendaries. Everyone picked, I think it was Sun Wukong we were getting. That was the champion we were getting. And I can't remember who everyone was picking. I picked her. And I actually booked her and booked. These two, A2, A3, do ridiculous damage. That's not what she's about. You know what she's about. She's about the A1. And even without books, you bring her into the arena. People are thinking, why would you bring her into the arena, Rob? Well, I'll tell you what. If you have a decreased defense on him, she has a 30% chance of placing asleep. She has a 30% of placing decreased defense. But if you have a decreased defense champion, it's a 100% chance to place asleep, which then allows you to control the pace of the fight, including arena, including waves. It's a little known kind of slept on ability of hers. And then the third one ignores 50% of the target's defense. So it's a nice finishing shot. Those are nice to haves, but the reason why I put her on this list is because at A3, no books, 0 investment, but gear and speed and she is going to be your new best friend.
Yeah, and the other thing that's actually kind of fun with this, that's where she's actually grown well with it too, is the cruelty blessing, I believe, drops that defense per hit. So she is better at applying cruelty against the boss than any other champion in the game for the most part. So especially if you can get 6-star cruelty on her, something gross like that. Or, some people like to build her in Savage. I think the speed runs early on were building her in Savage as well, because she can actually do decent damage and you're already crit capping her anyway. But yeah, she is a very fun champion. I would not mind having her on the free-to-play. I've got a Ruella, not as good as an Allure for the Fire Knight. So, awesome. Let's go. Let's see. Who else do we have here? Ooh. You know what? We're going to go with a Void. I think this is the only Void one I have on the list. And Voids I know are a little bit, iffy. But I think oldie but goodie is Skull Crown is still just a great one to have here. You've got basically 2 different AoEs. This can do a ton of damage if it places the extra hit. To be fair, it's only got a 50-50 shot kind of placing the extra hit depending on how much HP they have. This hits very hard, has a chance to place the weaken, but I don't know a lot of people build her with accuracy because it's only a 50% chance. If you don't book her, this is still a 4-turn cooldown, and since you've got the big smacking A1, it's not that big of a deal. And then she's got the unkillable if she gets low on HP, and if you pair her with Sinesha, which is great for some of the blender comps, she gets a second revive on top of that as well, making her super tanky. And then you got a speed aura in battle for Arena, which is where you'd possibly want to use her as well. She also does a really good job of being a campaign farmer in an arena build for the most part too, so she can do double duty for you as well.
Sure. And you put her in a crazy, and this is just for those people that are having the problems on. It's a cheese. It's not the best cheese, but it is a cheese method of Nightmare campaign, because she has unkillable, not block damage. If she has just enough health, she's at 1 hit point, the boss won't target her, but much like with Paragon, if she has a little bit of health, the boss will try to kill her, and she's unkillable. So you make her really, really slow. So once she procs that unkillable, she's unkillable for several turns of your main champion. So long as she still has health, that's a key. It's not always... you got to be cheeky with it, but I mentioned it because that's how I finally passed it. Way on my very first account when Nightmare was around, is I used her, and oh gosh, I think it was Tayrell, believe it or not. I did like a damage build Tayrell, so he is useful for that if you need to. But great champion in Arena, obviously that's where she do.
And you can throw in a stun set too. That's actually good for later game stuff too, or even just you don't need the damage for some reason because there's plenty of Knights Revs that smack nowadays now too. So you can instead just throw her in stun set, not even care about damage, make her fast, and she's a combination of tanky and constantly stunning absolutely everybody, and is absolutely amazing for that too. Awesome champion.
I'm going to go to Barbarians, and you've inspired me to go to Void. And this is admittedly a bit of a niche, but Harken Greatblade is a solution to a problem that you may have. And I had mentioned this in another video I've done recently, but I want to mention it again. If you have an HP burn, say, I don't know, Geomancer, for example. And as you know, Geomancer does not have an AoE, and you're trying to get through Spider, for example. Any spiders, anywhere that you have lots of enemies, and burn's going to do damage on them. Hydra, arguably. The advantage of her, even without books, is it's a 100% chance. It applies a debuff spread, taking 2 random debuffs from the target and putting them on all enemies. So it also extends the duration of those debuffs by 2 turns, except for not on the initial target. So imagine you got all these spiderlings, you put your HP burn on the main target, maybe you have a decreased attack as well. Oh no, the ruined, nope, not ruined. She'll take both of them, she'll put a 4 turn on all the spiders. Now you just use whatever it means you have to reduce the turn meter of the boss, and there's your spider comp. Harken is so slept on because she had her kit's been changed since it originally was, and if you want to use her in other areas with the weaken and that sort of stuff, and she does great damage, you have to put books into her. But for what we're talking about, you only need to do it once. And I think that I wanted to give a shout out to a champion that is a solution to a problem that so many people have, including probably 90% of the people who are playing in this free-to-play challenge right now. As I look at the content creators, last time I looked, there's only one person who's at Spider 20. It's not me, it should be me, but unfortunately I'm not quite there with my comp, though I do have Mordecai. But I'll be there soon. So Harken Greatblade,
Yep.
One of the best if you do puller.
Yeah, in fact, she also had a brief proliferance in Arena when you had Astrolith and Harken Greatblade that would go in and wreck Stoneskin teams very, very easily as well. So yeah, she's yeah, you're not saying that she's a great champion. You're saying that if you need her skills, she brings some new skills that a lot of people sleep on. And yeah, absolutely, totally get that. You know, and she got a weaken as well. It's a single target weaken, but you know what? That can be useful in some situations. Extra hit if this is critical. Again, that's since he starts to smack, not too bad as well. So yeah, not a bad champion to have. Definitely one that a lot of people do sleep on, especially a lot of these old school. All right, let's take a look here. We're gonna go now. This champion here has some pretty huge tracts of land, so that is why she is a banner lord. We have Lady Annabelle right here. She goes by other nicknames as well. And she is absolutely stunning, and she is absolutely amazing because she is a fairly low investment Bommel solution. And I say fairly low investment. For the higher levels of Bommel, you're going to need better gear. But early on, you can probably get away with just 3-piece Immortal for at least everything on normal, is if you at least got some HP and some reasonable speed on her. And it's all about this passive, which is this heals this champion by 50% when an ally or an enemy dies, combined with the fact that she's got an A1 that heals her by 3% of her max HP per hit. And if that's got War Master on it, that actually does add to that healing, I believe, as well, and just makes her unbooked, absolutely amazing for Bommel, but you do need a little bit of gear to do it, so it's not like she's like, you know, the answer of absolutely everything. But on top of that, if you do end up booking her, AoE decreased speed and AoE leech are very useful debuffs to have. And it's a 4-turn cooldown unbooked, 75% chance, kind of sucks, but you know, it's better than nothing. And then this ally swap, you don't need to use this on a 6-turn cooldown. If you're manualing with this is very useful to have when you want it, because it's very much a builder super tanky with all those regen. And then, uh-oh, this person's going to die. Well, nope, they're not going to anymore. Now she's about to die, but she's got the revive on death. And if she doesn't die this turn, she's probably back up to full next turn. So absolutely amazing. I love her.
One of my wife's favorite champions.
Yes.
Absolutely. Mrs. Capper loves Lady Annabelle. Yeah, she's the Bommel cheat code. She's one of a few Bommel cheat codes, and boy, it'd be nice if I had her now so I could cheat my way through Bommel 90, which would be very sweet, but unfortunately not happening. But absolutely great call out. She's an amazing champion. Once you have the books, booking her makes her even better, but you don't need it. So awesome. All right, now for my final one, I got a couple, and I'm trying to decide which way to go here with this. I think I'm going to go with, because it's a little more out of the box, and actually it's one that will be on another video, most likely. Another demon spawn. I wish I wasn't keep going down the same well here. And if I can find them.
Scion, right?
There, yeah, right in front of me. Tarshan. Yes, Scion is also on a list of mine. Not the list that we're talking about today.
Yes.
Tarshan is a champion that has a toolkit that is useful in today's game. And this is one that does help with books. And it is a bit of a cheat because you do need to eventually put books, or you're going to improve his abilities with the books. But he has a provoke on the A1. And the reason that's so important is because Magma Dragon is a big part of the Doom Tower. You've got the Head of Decay in Hydra, and you've got a defensive-based champion that has a provoke. Yes, it's only a 35% win book, but nowadays you're speeding your champions up, you're using ally attack, you're using all these different methods, and you need to land it once per 3 really to get it to go down. And it's an A1, so you have multiple chances with this guy to kind of make it land. I like that. Do I want it to be 50%? Absolutely. But what I do, not on this account because unfortunately I don't have the gear for it, but what I would do is combine this with the provoke set. That's giving you multiplicative chances to taunt your target, and that's making him that much. I mean, the reason why I make him more than just that is because he also has a beautiful 75%, does book up to 100% chance for a weekend, and he has on top of that an increased defense with only a 2-turn cooldown that's all into books, and a passive that places a strengthen buff on this champion whenever they drop below 50% HP. So you're making yourself a stun target, you're locking down a champion wherever that may be. In the case of Hydra, they still hit whoever the heck they want, but in the case of other areas, now you're being hit. You're putting a strength in to improve your survivability. You're a defense-based champion with 1400 defense, 17k HP. Those aren't bad numbers. Putting a weekend to help the team kill, and that provoke with a provoke set is giving you those chances to put down your enemy with a relatively, I would say, easy investment. Now,
Mhm.
I use this guy as my last one because he is. I feel like you need books to really make full use of him, whereas the other ones we talked about really you can use without books. But they're low. There's not a lot of them.
Yeah, only 10 books. You could get
There's
lucky and
10
only need
books.
4 of them.
Exactly. And just the overall kit, the synergy of the increased defense, the synergy of the strength, and the weaken it helps with the team, and then of course the provoke, which is what his staple is. So that's why I put Darshan as my number 5.
Yeah, and I think he's one of these champions. I know pre-Hydra, I remember looking at him, and I think somebody said, yeah, he's not too bad. And I looked at him and was like, why? Where would I ever use this guy? There's just, provoke isn't that exciting. Oh boy, I'd rather have decreased defense versus weaken at the time, and it's not even 100%, and then this stuff is just kind of okay. So yeah, he's kind of niche for a couple things, but he's the right affinity for the Magma Dragon, at least one of the Magma Dragon rotations. And the Strengthen is definitely kind of nice to drop, to keep him alive. Increased defense is underrated, honestly, and it's turn meter boost too. So yeah, he's got a very good utility kit. Not necessarily going to be an all-star in anybody's account, but a very usable epic for certain situations if you need his toolkit. Awesome. All right, so we're going to go with my last one, and I've got 2 options here. I'll let you make the call. Old school or new school?
Let's go new school. We did a lot of old school. Let's go new school.
We have done a lot of old school. So my honorable mention would have been Vrask, who is an absolute
that's a good
for
call.
this stuff. But instead, we are actually going to go with Dirindil. I like this dude a lot. He is a very good damage dealer. And damage dealers definitely gain a lot from books. So I'm not pretending that you don't want to book him to make him as a damage dealer for an epic. But the fact that he has a 50% ignore defense on this A1 here, that veils him. Yes, it's a 5-turn cooldown, so that's a little annoying. It books to a 4-turn cooldown, though. Only needs 3 books, so it's not a huge investment to get that down. It's got here a AoE that already ignores 15% of the target's defense and fills his turn meter by 10% for each critical hit. So he speeds himself up a little bit as well, which is another reason that those cooldowns aren't as bad as they look, because he has ways to get his own turn meter up a bit, so they effectively become less of an issue. And this books to a 3-turn cooldown, very nice. He's got a chance to freeze on the A1 as well. Obviously, you're not building him necessarily with a lot of accuracy, but you could get lucky with this on occasion, and if you do build him with some accuracy, that's kind of nice. And I think the ultimate thing that makes him very easy to invest, and again, we've seen 10 books total, almost all of it's damage for the damage dealers here. But, the crit rate, ally in all battles, I know this is always a weird one to invest in sometimes, because if you build a team for it, then they're not going to be good with anybody other than him in the lead. But if you're looking to build an arena team with him, well, then you can certainly focus on it for him. For Faction Wars, he provides a usable, and honestly, that 15% crit rate in Faction Wars is huge, because you're not always building crit rate on all your other champions, so it's an easier way to build the rest of your champions for Faction War. Heck, it even helps with a Kale, who's not going to be built with that extra 15% crit rate necessarily, but now that you got the Aura, then you don't need it, and he's got 100% crit rate on his other 2 abilities then too. So nice, easy to deal with, low investment, definitely gets more from that high investment, but he is a very underrated damage dealer, I think, as well, because he's ignoring a lot of defense. And I think the other reason that makes him very accessible from a free-to-play perspective, he's already ignoring 50% defense. So if I can't get him into Savage, he'll still smack without me having the Savage to get him into.
Absolutely. I've actually one of the few I've yet to build and make a video on, so that's pretty good. 50% ignore defense is always ridiculously good. So
yeah, I built him on my second account that I had for Faction Wars, and he ended up replacing Kale as a damage dealer because he was doing almost double the damage of Kale. He's really got some great multipliers on top of these ignoring defense as well. And against, and he scales really well too. So for things like Centranos later on, you need a damage dealer and you've only got a Dirindil. Well, if you're going to invest in an epic, you might as well invest in one that's already ignoring defense. And you're talking about some of these stupid hard levels. Extra ignore defense is that much more valuable against the 285 level characters you're going to be fighting there. Awesome. I mentioned Vrask as an honorable mention. You have any other ones you haven't had a chance to mention yet? You just kind of want to shout out quickly?
Yeah, I do. And it's an out-of-the-box one, and it's only because technically free. So the Rosm Fusion we tend to do passively. We just hold them until we get them and then we go. But if you happen to pull a blood feather. She is an orc, and the reason I mentioned, and it actually rung in my head when you mentioned, hey, you know, having that aura at the beginning isn't very good, but in Faction Wars it is. Now she has a faction crit rate of 20%. She's been buffed. She's got a 1542 attack. The reality is she has an extra 30% on all her kits, which means you putting her in the lead, you only have to build her for 50% crit rate, and she actually hits pretty freaking hard. Her multipliers are strong. Now, do you want to put books in her? If you have them, absolutely. But she's really not going to be useful to you, to most people, because she's all single target outside of Faction Wars. Especially she's only got she places the decreased defense as one of the changes they made. She just places it now. So think of these single target bosses, Chimera, wherever else, decreased speed. I just think that I don't want to go over it because she's only supposed to be the honorable mention. For a champion you can literally get for free, this is a champion that's probably going to put your Faction Wars over the top on the bosses and stuff. So don't sleep on Bloodfeather if you have. You can fuse her, use her, and then eat her for rosin down the road.
Yeah, I mean, you're basically somebody you're going to have to invest into 5 stars Ascended at some point in time anyway. So if you throw some gear on her and use her for a while, she's one that's worthwhile as opposed to like Torture Helm, who's not particularly great. But if you have to use them, you can. Yeah, I'd rather use a Bloodfeather. She's actually a much better damage dealer. So awesome. That is some free-to-play friendly epics. Obviously, we did not cover all of them as we've got a couple of extra ones there. And that's really kind of what you're looking for with the kits, though, is you're looking for kits that either the cooldowns aren't too bad without the books, or the cooldowns are the only benefits, or maybe you don't even want to use their A2. Vrask is actually a good example of Vrask you do not want to use his A2 because his A1 gives him turn meter boost, you know, and then his passive is what's doing the heavy lifting like a Doom Priest. And, you know, champions like that are just, you know, really good to look out. And again, if you have any questions about epics, you know, check out Mad Capper's channel. And, I mean, you're based on Mad Hatter Corda, so, you know, we'll get it wrong at some point. But, you know, go check him out. He's got the, we built them so you don't have them. He's refreshing that now that it's 2025 as well. So he's got some great advice on epics if you're ever looking up for some epics. Fun guy to hang out with as well in Twitch. I will leave some links down below. Do you have anything else for the folks here at home?
Yeah, if you aren't subscribed to both of us, you're a bad human being and really should be embarrassed.
There you have it. So smash that like button, smash that subscribe button for both of us. You know, we really appreciate it. Do not be a bad human being. Be kind, as he would say. And until the next video, he's the Mad Capper. I'm Bront CatHerder.